Hello everybody, my name is Yudin and I'm lead instructor in Python. I teach Python for data science, Python for finance, and I also teach web development with Python. So that's pretty much what we're going to be doing today. So today I'll show you how you could actually launch your own web application using Python. And it would be right to say that not just Python, but Django. So today we're going to be talking about really powerful framework, Django. And before we start, just a couple technical questions. So since I cannot hear you, but still this is a live session, so if you have questions, you see that we have these live chats going on. And then you could actually type your questions in our live chat, and I'll be keeping an eye on that live chat. And if you have any questions, please ask me in real time and I'll explain everything to you. And also I would like to know where you're from, what are you doing, if you have any experience with Python or you're just beginner. And by the way, all our classes designed specifically for beginners. I would say that we have designed all our classes for people that never ever coded before. So if you're brand new to Python or programming in general, but you have a great idea for a web application that will make a world a better place, so you're in the right place. And today, what we're going to be doing today is first I'll explain you how these web applications actually work, how they work behind those screens that you actually see on your mobile device or on your desktop or on your, I don't know, like iPad or something like that. And then I guess we have enough time. We even built something small so I could actually walk you through the initial setup process. And couple of words about myself. So again, my name is Yudin, and you can find all our upcoming classes and Django and web development with Django and just plain vanilla Python classes if you go to programwithus.com. So that's our website. Also, you'll find the same information at mobiledesktop.com. And in a couple of weeks, we actually will be launching this course that I'm going to be explaining you right now. So in a couple of weeks, we're launching Python Immersive. So that's actually Python for complete beginners, for people who never coded before. And as an extension of that Python Immersive, we will be working with Django. And there is a second module, 2 weeks course, how to build versatile apps and do web development with Django. And by the way, I also issued a book recently called Building Versatile Mobile Apps with Python and Rest. And guess what? The reason why Django is so popular, and no worries, we're going to talk about everything in details when we get to that point, is that with Django, you could build any kind of app. You could do any kind of web development. Again, could be desktop version, could be mobile version. So maybe if you're planning to build some mobile app, or maybe you're trying to pivot your career and maybe you're trying to get into web development field. So that would be the right course for you. All right. So I hope you could hear me well. I hope you could see me well. And I would like to begin with this little presentation of how web application of any web application actually works. Now you probably heard these words, front end, back end. Sometimes people a little bit confused. Yeah, like I'm brand new to programming. Should I be backend developer? Should I be front-end developer? What's the difference? Now, usually front-end is referring to everything that people actually see. And we'll talk about technologies in a second, but that's pretty much front-end is referring to what you see on the screen and what you see on your iPhone or Android phone or whatever. And then backend actually is referring to that software that people develop so that to power that front end. And sometimes people would choose one over the other one. Sometimes they would go and be front-end developers and be like really skillful and knowledgeable in terms of how to make things nice and pretty and all these like cool buttons and everything. Sometimes people saying, yeah, I just want to do more like backend, I want to do more research, I want to gather data, maybe include like machine learning into your project. So that's possible. But guess what? With Python and Django in particular, you could be full stack developer. So you don't have to choose between front end and back end. So you could be a full stack developer. So you would know how to build everything from scratch, from back end to front end, how to make things pretty, and so on. All right, and we'll get to that part in a second, but let's take a look what we have here. So suppose there is a person, and usually that person, we would call that person a client, and client will send the request, and I hope you could see my mouse here on that graph, will send the request for some information. Now suppose that person or a client trying to fetch a Facebook page. All right, so that person sends that request for information. So pretty much what he or she does, enters fb.com, and that request goes over HTTP, and HTTP is a fancy word for internet, goes into a server. So in this process we have two parts. So we have a client and a server. So what is a server? Server is a huge computer that's on 24/7, that's highly secured, and it could be somewhere in New York, it could be in California, it could be whatever, it's not important. And basically that request comes to a server, so then here we have some kind of code or program, could be Django, could be Python, that will take this request, and based on the request, will filter a database, right? Because if you want to store a data, let's say profiles on the Facebook, you need to use a database. And then, so for example, if you're trying to fetch my profile from a Facebook, so we need to filter it based on some kind of unique identifier, such as, I don't know, my name or my nickname or my username or whatever. And that when this code receives a request, it filters that database, gets the data and sends that data as a response back. And this information could be sent in different formats, could be sent in HTML, hypertext markup language. We use it every day. Every day you open the web page, you see that HTML. Or could be sent as JSON. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So most of the time, JSON will be consumed by some other device, such as a cell phone, mobile phone, maybe car, maybe fridge, maybe microwave, because you know these days all these devices, they actually could get online and they could actually communicate to a server. And so that's why I'm saying that with Django you could build any type of web application, you know, could be for humans, or maybe you could develop something that your fridge will place an order at a local store and will order some food for you. So it's like really versatile, and you could build pretty much anything. So that's in general how it works. Now let's talk about full stack. So what is a full stack? So before we saw that front end, back end. Now if you think about full stack, everything in one place. And here on the bottom we have different hosting solutions. The most popular one is AWS. It's Amazon Web Services. So that's the most popular one. But there are other web hosting solutions. So that's pretty much the servers. So that's where your server will be. And then it's up to you. You could use AWS, or you could use Google, or there is DigitalOcean here in downtown New York, so you could use them. Now then, so the meat is actually like, is referring to this code. So this code on the server gotta be done in some programming language. And here, what we got here, so here we have PHP. Yeah, it's popular choice, but not as popular as Python. Ruby, guys, come on, nobody's using Ruby anymore. That's a thing of a past. Java, if you're in finance, yes, people use Java. C#, yeah, people would use C#. No, it's always popular, but here, since we're using Python and since we're talking about Django, we're going to be talking about Python. And besides, you could Google, don't have to trust me. Python is the most popular language, all right? And Django is an extension of Python, is a framework which will combine everything together, and you could build a web application. So then as cheese, we could use different databases, and the most popular obviously is PostgreSQL. And guess what? When you use Django, you could actually attach any database, PostgreSQL, obviously. SQLite comes as a Python module. And by the way, let me tell you a story, because sometimes when people hear SQLite, they think, oh gee, that's some kind of like not serious database, because light, it's got light word. But guess what? The first version of Facebook was running on SQLite, so it's pretty powerful. Besides it comes built in as a built-in feature in Python, so if you downloaded Python, you already have it. So then, this let us pretty much how we will deliver that information. And here on top, we have different front-end solutions. So obviously the most popular one, HTML, CSS. Bootstrap is a solution that is a combination of HTML and CSS, and it will make your website and web app responsive to different screens. So Angular, yes, still popular, but I would go with React. React is the most popular. So the point I'm trying to make, although Python is kind of back-end language, with Django, you could use any of these solutions. You could actually attach React or Angular or Bootstrap or HTML or whatever, you know, or you could send this information in JSON, JavaScript, object notation. And again, if you're brand new to web development and all this stuff a little bit confusing, no worries, we'll walk through all the steps and it will make sense. All right, so now I just want to say a couple of words about how they actually function, web applications, how they actually function. So there is very, very popular MVC model or model view controller. So this model actually explains how any web application works behind the hood, under the hood, how it works under the hood. And if you actually take a look at this graph and flip back to our previous graph, they kind of similar. So let me explain you how that stuff works. So here we have a client, user client, that sends request and it gets into controller. So controller is actual code on the server, in our case code written in Python, and then that controller will filter database, and database we call model. So that's a fancy word for a model, for a database. And based on that request, controller sends request for information and filters a database, and then gets a response, and then this response being sent to view. Now view, this is where it gets interesting. View could be implemented in a bunch of different solutions. So as I mentioned, could be HTML, and that's what we're going to do today, or could be implemented as JSON if this information intended to used by some other device or some other application. And that's how it actually works. So Django is very popular framework that based on MVC model. All right. And by the way, like I said that before, I would say that 99% of all apps in this world, they actually designed as MVC. There are some other options, but those options would be different variations of MVC. Otherwise, that's pretty much how any web application would function. Now, let me say a couple of words about Django. So why Django is so popular? So, and here I'm gonna open this browser, and if you're curious about Django, it's always would be a good idea to go to Django documentation. All right, so here you'll find Django documentation. And Django is very popular. Why? Because it's really fast. All right. And here you can find overview. And Django is very fast. So then it's fully loaded. What does it mean? It means that it comes with a bunch of modules. Now you understand that in modern world, no matter what application you will build, you'll need authentication. You need user to be able to register, to log in. You would need to store somewhere securely passwords, usernames, emails, and stuff like that. So guess what? You don't want to build that from scratch. It already comes as a module in Django. So it's already there. That's why it's fully loaded. Also, it comes with other modules such as sessions. So session is pretty much those cookies that web application will leave in your browser, and that's what creates a session. All right, and so as they're saying, very secure. All right, so it's very scalable. That's true. Why? Because even if you have a small team, 1 or 2 people, or if you have a bunch of developers, you could build a really cool web application. Or you could start with something small and then you could grow it. So guess what? Instagram. I hope we got some Instagram users. Instagram powered by Django. Surprise, surprise, right? You can imagine Instagram and Django. And by the way, I don't remember from the top of my head, but we could also Google what apps run on Django Python. Let's take a look. Oh, you see, you'll find these 9 popular Django applications. So National Geographic, Instagram I mentioned, Mozilla, Spotify, quite a huge app, Pinterest, right? And a bunch of other pretty cool services that are actually powered by Django. All right, so I guess I made my case for Django. Now, let's build something. Let's try to use Django. So first thing first, what do you need to do? Let me close this presentation. So first thing, if you don't have Python installed, you need to go to python.org, and then you need to download the recent version of Python. So here I'm using Mac, and that's why it's telling me for Mac. But if you're on Windows and you open this website from Windows, so then you'll see Python version for Windows, right? So you could download this on your computer, and then you would need to download something like Visual Code Studio, all right, or any other text editor of your choice. So Visual Code obviously is the most popular, but there is also Sublime. Some people use Sublime. I don't want to advertise anyone here, but there is Sublime. It's free. You could download it from here. You could just Google and download it. It's free. Or Visual Studio Code. You could download from here. It's also free. So in this session, I'll be using Visual Studio Code. So that's where we're actually going to be writing that code. So then, what we need to do, we need to create virtual environment, and we need to create a folder to hold our project. So I was thinking, what should we build today? And I thought, how about we build a small app for different cars? I'm a car fan, and suppose you want to build a service such as Carvana or some other service that would be related to cars, and you need to store in your database all these different types of cars. So we could build something like that, all right, on the fly. So you need to open a terminal, and by the way, terminal is a fancy name for a command prompt. Sometimes it's called bash, sometimes it's called when you use Windows, they call this PowerShell. So then you open the PowerShell, all right? So you open the PowerShell, and where do you find it if you have no idea where to find this? So what you could do, you could actually go to search, and here, again, I'm on Mac, but on Windows it would be pretty much same stuff. You could type terminal. All right, so you could type, oh, I'm sorry, I misspelled it, terminal, all right, and then it will open this window, all right. So here we could use command make dir, and we could, this command is a Linux command, and by the way, that should work on Windows too. Make dir means make directory, and we will make a directory. Let's call this fancy cars. Fancy cars. All right. So now you should have this directory on your computer, and by directory I mean just a folder. So you could make that folder by clicking with your mouse and create a new folder, or you could use this command. So that's more pro way of doing things, fancy cars. So then we need to get into that folder. How would we get there? CD stands for change directory, fancy cars. So now if you see, right now I'm in that folder, and you could do this command ls. ls means list, nothing in there. By the way, if you're on Windows, you could use dir. So this command won't work on my computer, but ls should work for Mac. dir should work for Windows, right? So that's the same command, and that command will list you all the files in that folder. And right now we don't see anything because that's a brand new folder. There is nothing in there. All right, so then to install Django, we need to create a virtual environment. So what is a virtual environment? So virtual environment is, and again, like if you ever seen a series such as ER, when they do an operation, there is got to be a clean room so germs won't get into that room. So virtual environment, and sort of we're creating that clean room. And libraries we will install there will be specific to that room. All right? So how would you install virtual environment? So you could do virtual env. So that's a command, space. Then you need to come up with the folder where you're going to keep all this virtual environment files. Now you could call it banana if you like, but by convention you should call it env, or I usually call it vnv. So vnv is just the name of the folder. All right? So if you hit enter, it will establish virtual environment in that folder. Now, if that command, for some reason, gives you problems and you cannot get it started, so then a couple of things you should do. So if you go to our website, Program With Us, and if you're on our website, Program With Us, and by the way, here you could check these web development courses, Python and Django, so that's the course we're talking about right now. If you go to this menu, so then here you'll find resources. And if something is not working, you could go to Python, and then here you'll find the guide how to install Python on Mac, how to install Python on Windows. If for some reason virtual environment command's not working on your Mac, you can find how to troubleshoot here, or if you scroll down, you'll find a bunch of other resources. And by the way, here you'll also find how to install pip and virtual environment on Windows. However, if you downloaded Windows, then you should have it here. Now again, if for some reason that didn't work, what you could try to use this command, pip3 install virtual environment. All right? So what is pip3? pip3 stands for Python Package Manager. So every time you want to install a Python extension, you could install it with pip3 or pip command. pip3 is referring to Python version 3. And if you just download it, so that's the command you should be using. Now, keep in mind that when you need an extension of Python, you don't want to just find it yourself and download it on your computer. That's totally the wrong way. So the only right way to install something related to Python would be to use pip command. All right? So pip install virtual environment. Now, I don't need this command because I already got these virtual environments going on in this folder. However, we need to launch virtual environment, or I would say activate virtual environment. So again, if you run this command ls, so now you see we have this folder VNV. By the way, let me remind you that if you're on Windows, you should run dir. So that would be the same command as ls, but for Windows. And if you need to activate virtual environment, so the command for Mac would be source VNV bin activate. How do you know it's activated? Now you could see these parentheses and VNV in parentheses. So if you see this part, that means that virtual environment is activated. Now for Windows, activation command might be slightly different, but you could check in that resource that I showed you on our website. So now our virtual environment is ready and it's activated. So now we need to install a couple of libraries such as Django. How do we do this? pip3 install Django. So pip knows where to find Django, what version to install, and it will do all the job. So now it's being downloaded and installed on our computer. Then what we need to do, we need to install another library called Pillow. So why do we need Pillow? Pillow is a very popular library to work with images, and if in your project you'll be working with images, and probably you will, so you need to install Pillow. So usually when I launch a new project, I usually install Pillow, so I don't have to think about it later. So how would I do it? So it would be same command, pip3 install Pillow. Alright, so now I got that Pillow installed. So now if you want to see all the libraries that you have installed in your virtual environment, the command will be pip3 freeze, and then you see it will show us that here we have Django that came with with all these other libraries such as SQL parse, and then we have Pillow, so everything is good. So then what we need to do then we need to launch that project. So we need to actually start our application. So how we're going to do it? So the command is Django -admin. And by the way, if you don't remember commands, because sometimes there are too many commands, and if you're a beginner you don't remember commands, what you could do, you could actually type Django admin, and then it will get you the list of all available commands, you see. So the point I'm trying to make is that you don't have to memorize. I mean, if you got good memory, it's very good, but if you don't remember something, then you could always do this Django admin, and then we have all these commands, and the command I'm looking for is start project. So the start project command will launch a brand new application. So we'll do Django admin and then start project, and then space, we have to come up with some kind of name for that project. So what I'm going to call it, I'm going to call it cars underscore, you cannot use blanks, no way you could use blanks, cars project. Alright, so since we're talking about cars, so Django -admin space start project space name of the project. You're not happy with cars, you want to do something else, you could do something else. Alright, and now if you do ls again, you see we got this new folder, cars project. So Django created for us project. So what I want to do, I want to open this folder, fancy cars, in a text editor. Like I told you, I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code. So I'm opening this right now. I go to open folders in the file. I search for that project, which is fancy cars here, you see, and then I click open. All right, and now we see virtual environment, and let me zoom in a little bit. Hey, can I zoom in a little bit? All right, so all right, and here I have virtual environment folder. We don't need it, so just leave it. And then we have cars project, so click on cars project, and here we have, and I know this is a little bit confusing at the beginning, because in cars project you got nested folder cars project, but that's not a mistake. So that's pretty much, sometimes people would rename this and call this core, but that's pretty much all your main files, like all the brains for this project. You see settings and URL and everything. I'll talk about them in a second. We will actually use it. So I decided, so the best way to understand how Django works, so first would be to show you those slides that I showed you before, and then we could actually walk through all these things and you see how that actually works. So then we got manage. Manage is kind of manager. All the commands, they should go through this manage.py file. So the first thing that I'm going to create here, I'm going to create new app, And I know this is confusing because you might say, hey, we already got an app. Why do we need another app? So guess what? Cars project is actual app, but it will include bunch of other modules because your app could be quite huge with accounts, with the registration, with a bunch of other things. So guess what? In Django, they call these modules apps. I know this is a little bit confusing, but app and module, you could use them interchangeably. So I'm going to get back to this terminal. I'm going to get into this folder, cars project, so cd cars project, and then I need to use Python that I just downloaded recently, and manage.py. And manage.py, like I said, that the manager command. Again, if you don't know or don't remember commands, that's okay, because you could hit enter and then it will reveal you all available commands. All right? So first thing first, what we need to do, we need to kind of launch our project here. And how would we do it? We need to create a database because we need to have users and everything. How would we do it? So first thing first, we need to use command migrate. And you could see there is like two commands. Make migrations, we'll talk about that command a little bit later. And migrate, this migrate will actually launch you a new Django project. All right, so let's do this command. Python manage.py migrate, and what it just did, it created all models, and model again is a fancy word for a database. So if you do this ls, now you see you got this database SQLite 3. All right, so what it means that now we have this database. So what I want to do next, I want to create a superuser. Superuser is actually going to be me, the guy who will be managing this project. And how would we do it? So instead of migrate, we'll need to use command create superuser, one word, no spaces, create superuser. And then take this seriously, by the way, because Django comes with a pretty cool authentication system, and it won't allow you to use passwords such as 1, 2, 3. So you gotta come up with something more sophisticated. So here I'm going to use Art as my username, email Art Yudin at programwithus.com, and the password, so you won't see it. All right, again. All right, so now you see I got this superuser created successfully. Now, another thing that you have to understand, that right now we are running this project locally on your computer, but in real life we need to take this project and deploy it to a server. But how could we see the changes that we're making in real time? Because obviously we don't want to take it and deploy it right now, because that's a time-consuming process that would require some connection with the server. Now, guess what? Django comes with a built-in developer server. So you could use this command, python manage.py, run server, and our project is running, and here you see this HTTP address. So that's pretty much like domain name. You could just copy that, open any browser will do, and here you could just copy and paste that, hit enter, and guess what? Our Django project is up and running. Hey, how cool is that? All right, so we don't need it right now. We could leave this because we're planning to do some work first. Now, to stop this server, you need to use Control C, all right, Control C, And here what I'm going to do Python 3 manage.py. Again, don't remember command, that's okay. Start app. We need to start that app for our cars. So start app, and let me call this cars. Cars, plural. Alright, so now, I hope you got it. Python 3 manage.py, start app cars. Now if you flip back to this text editor, you see now we got these cars. Now we got these cars. So first thing first, when you create a new app, you need to add it to that main settings file, settings.py. So go to that file, and here you see we got option installed apps. So we need to add our new app, cars, here. Make sure you save the changes. So make sure here you have cross. So it means everything is saved. And remember I showed you that graph. Do I have it here? It's somewhere here. It's difficult to find it. But you remember that person that will send the request. So that's to manage our database. We need to create a database for our cars. So here in this module cars, you see there is models. You see models, and models this is where you define your database. So we will go to models, and here we'll establish our database. So I'm going to create class, and Python is object-oriented language, so you better use classes. So car. So that's going to be our database for car. And then we have to think, all right, so speaking of cars, what are the attributes of that car? All right, so let's think about it. While you're thinking, I'm going to place here models and model, because classes could inherit stuff from other classes, right? And then here we need to outline these attributes of each particular car. So I'm going to do model. So model. So then make. And let's keep it simple, color. So suppose, and again, using the same logic, later you could do more. You could add images, year, engine, something else. So it depends. But here I'm just trying to explain you the logic. And here is going to be model. So here, if you're familiar with the databases, if not, that's okay. We'll teach you here. You need to define each field for each attribute. So since model should be a string, we will be using char field with a capital C and capital F field, and here we could provide max length, let's say as 200 characters, so it's up to you. So the same deal will be, and here I guess I made a mistake because it's not a model here, it's models. Yes, models, chart field, right? All right, so the same deal will be with the make and with the color. So after that, make sure you save changes, because you see changes are unsaved. So here you could save this, and now you could go back to your terminal, and every time you make changes in the file models, you need to create make migrations. So what is make migrations? Make migrations will prepare this blueprint for a database. All right, so how we're going to do it? So here we're going to do Python manage.py, make migrations. Run this, and now you see it actually prepared this. You see this new folder migrations, and here we got this blueprint for our model, but frankly this is not important for you right now. So, but run this command again. The command goes like Python 3 manage.py make migrations. So then we need to actually create this table in our database, and then we need to use migrate. So make migrations will create that blueprint for a database. Migrate will actually create a table in the database. Migrate. All right. So now we got this stuff in our database. All right. So make migrations migrate. So by now you're probably wondering, all right, so that's kind of cool, but how do I see the database? How do I actually insert that data in my database? So getting back to our module cars, here we have admin file, all right, and we need to import our model, so it's going to be from cars, and let's do this point models. So point means the same folder we are in right now. Point models, import, and what did we call our model car? So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to take this car and import it into admin so I could use it there. So I'm just going to copy it from there and place it here. And then here we'll do admin site register, and we will place here car. So what we're trying to do here, Django comes with the built-in forms, and since we haven't created any forms, we could use built-in solution. So, but make sure you save this file. So this will create these forms for this car model. Getting back to our file, getting back to our terminal, run command python manage.py run server. All right. So now you see server is up and running. So we could open this page here. And first thing first, we need to log in. So how would we log in? You need to do here in this URL, you need to do /admin. Remember we created a superuser. So here I will use my username and my password. And this is what we got. So this is like how this app looks under the hood. And we have these cars. And so far we don't have any cars, so I'm going to create a couple of cars here. So model, let's say Mustang. And then make will be Ford. And color should be red, obviously. All right, so save and add another one. Then what other cars you wanna add? All right, so maybe Toyota. All right, so let's add Toyota. So it's going to be, let's say, Toyota. And suppose this would be, I know, like RAV4, and it will be white. All right, and let's add one more. And what else can we add? Any other cars you want to add? All right, so let's add maybe Hyundai Venue. Hyundai. and suppose it's black. Alright, so I got 3 cars here. Now I want to explain you how that stuff actually works. So when I render these cars, when user gonna hit the car. So how would we do it? We gotta go to our cars project. So here there is URLs folder, and URLs. This is URL dispatcher. So every time you punch in a URL, that URL gets into here, and based on that part, we will call some kind of view and view the actual code that will do stuff. So what to deal with the views? So we gotta go to views, and we need to create a view. So I'm gonna create a simple view that will just render our cars. And the way we will do it, we will use generic views that actually built into Django. So we need to import them from Django. From Django views, generic will import list view. Alright, so then we'll create that actual view, and this view will be triggered by that URL that we will receive from a user. Alright, so here we're going to create class. I'm going to call this car list view, and this class will inherit stuff from list view. And I need to be specific about the model, the database that I want to be using. So it's going to be model car. But you could see that car is not defined here. So pretty much as before, as we did it here in admin, we need to import it into that views file. So I'm just going to copy it from there, import it here, make sure you save everything. So now this view, this code will be invoked based on incoming URL. So let's get back to urls.py file, and here we'll create new path. And we call this, let's call this all cars. So when all cars will be keyword, so when user type in all cars, we'll render all the cars. All right. So all cars, and then there's going to be what? Car list view as view, like this. All right, now the problem is it's not defined here, so we need to import it. So it's going to be from dot views import car list view. All right, so the URL gets into dispatcher, and this dispatcher will call this car list view. So if your server is up and running, so then we could test it, and here we could type all cars, and hold on a sec, all cars, all. Did I save everything? Oh, my server is not running. There is a problem. So it's saying car list view, there is no cars project views. Oh, hold on a second. Right, because it's not here. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Since we're in a different folder, so we need to be specific, so it's got to be cars views. So here, please add cars view. From cars views, from this module, we important from file views, we important car list view, actual our class that we just created. So let me run this. So now server is up and running. All right, it's good. So now, but we got another problem. So nothing is working here. Why? Because apparently it's trying to execute that class, but it's looking for this HTML template that we haven't created. So what we need to do, we need to create a HTML file with this name. So here, please go to cars, click on cars and create new folder. Call these templates, plural, templates. And then in templates, we need to create new folder, and the name of the folder should match name of that module, which is cars. So cars. And in these cars, we need to create new file. And this file should be called card_list HTML. So you see, we're attaching HTML to our Python. Who would have thought that you could use Python with HTML? That's what I call full stack development. All right. Now, if you're good with HTML, so here you could write pretty much whatever you like. I'm going to create this H1 tag, and I'm going to call it, let's say, my cars. All right. And then we need to fetch all the cars. So I'm going to be writing Python code, but since it's Python code in HTML, I need to use curly braces. And here we need to use a for loop. If you're not familiar with the for loop, we will teach you how to do for loops in our Python immersive that will start in a week. And here we need to do for car in object list. All right. So then car represents an instance of each car. And here I'm going to do something. Again, I'm not like really good with HTML, but I'll try to do something here. I'm going to do H3 here, for example. And here in a nested curly braces, I'll use that car, and I'll show all attributes of this car that will come in from our model, right? So here we have model, make, and color. All right, so that's what I'm doing. I'm just trying to show you, explain you the logic here. So car.model, and then comma, car, comma, and then I'm going to do make and color here. So pretty much that should render now in HTML all the colors we have in our database. Then, since it's Python, here I need to use another curly braces with those they call tags, percentage signs, and for. All right, so that's our HTML code for now. Usually I would recommend you to reboot your server. So do Ctrl+C, and then you do python manage.py run server again. So server is up and running. If you go back to your browser and refresh this page, so now you see we got my cars, Mustang, RAV, and Venue, and pretty much that's how that web application actually works. So user provides this, so this will be replaced later with domain name, then some kind of extension, all cars. So this part gets into what we call URL dispatcher, gets here, finds that keyword, and based on keyword, it invokes that car list view. So this car list view being defined here in views, now it works, and now it fetches all the cars from this database with a car from here. And then we have in templates and cars, we have this HTML file, car_list HTML. And by the way, here you could later attach like JavaScript or whatever, so you could use any HTML. You could make it like really pretty, really nice. And then here, well, in this template, we insert that information that we receive from our database. And at the end of the day, here we're rendering all the cars to user. All right, that's pretty much it I wanted to show you today. So let me remind you that if you never coded before, and if you're trying to pivot your career, or if you just got a great idea that will make the world a better place, and you want to learn how to build web applications, you could go to us, starting from scratch. We'll teach you Python and we'll teach you Django. And that's amazing because we just scratched the surface a little bit, you know. I was just trying to explain you the principle behind any web application, but you could build anything. And you could always go to our website, Program with Us, and here you could go to web development, Python and Django. So that's pretty much what we did today. And the next starts on June 13. You still got some time. If you have any questions, you could always get back to me, and please write in the comments what else would you like to learn from these webinars, and we'll do a webinar, all right? So I hope you had a good time. If I went too fast, I'm sorry about that, but you could always rewind and rewatch some parts of this video, all right? All right, so I guess that's it for today. Then I'll see you in the classroom. All right, goodbye.